from the very beginning of your career, other drivers drove your race cars. There's no telling how many drivers drove your race cars over the years.
76.
76. How
So
much?
there is telling. Just like your Grand National scene, nobody knows it, but I do. I know all about the drivers that were in there. Everybody from Harry Dinwiddie to Richard Petty. Wow. He drove for me one time.
We'll get to that. How much of that was business, and how much of it was just doing a favor for a friend?
It wasn't a favor,
Okay.
We were all there to race. I was there to race, but we had, and in the beginning, I didn't. There was one day that Roy Main jumped in my car. For some reason, I don't know what it was, to get it qualified. I think I couldn't quite get it qualified. I think that was at Darlington, where he got in my car and he finished 10th in that race. That was the first time I had a top 10, or that my car had a top 10 finish. Him, I don't know, Dick May would always be standing around doing something, and him and Yippee, his dog.
Yeah.
They were there all the time, and Dick would, if I run a second car, I put him in it and do that, and just to make money. Sometimes we just start the race and park it for the second car. If there's enough, if we could get in the field, we'd do that. But really, in 1981, I think it was 1981, when I got together with Tim Richmond, and we started that program there. From then on, I somewhat retired. I'd already been killed in that crash, and I kind of felt like it'd be nice to look at it from a owner's standpoint, or from a crew chief, whatever I decided to be at that time. And I started getting all kinds of different guys in there, and a lot of guys with a name. I started Ernie Irvin, when his first race. I think he had one race with Mark Reno prior to that in NASCAR, but I sent Diane Sawyer over to Concord Speedway on Friday night when I was at Martinsville, and I couldn't get the car in the race. I just couldn't make it. I just couldn't get it in, and I didn't think I would be able to do it on the last day of qualifying. And Ernie used to hang out at the machine shop where I did some work. And he always said to me, he says, "Let me drive your car, let me drive." He always said that to me. And so I told her to go down there and tell him, he can drive the car tomorrow, but you better be there. And he showed up at Martinsville. Wow. Immediately chopped 2/10 off of my time and got in a race.
Well, I was going to ask, Tim Richmond, the first 5 Winston Cup races he ever ran was in your car.
The first, it was 4 that first year.
Yeah.
And then he ran my car the next year, all the way till June. And then he got in another car, and he was pissed because I ran better than him all year. I finished 4th at Dover that year in May, and he couldn't drive the car because he was qualifying at Indianapolis. And so we'd already agreed to that I'd put somebody else in for that race and for the 600, because he'd be in Indianapolis for the 600. Well, he didn't qualify for the race, never, and whatever happened. And I ran it in Dover the week before the 600, and that race was a strange race, but I still finished 4th. Right?
Yeah.
No matter what they say.
Well, how did the deal with Tim first come about?
It was with Joe Mattioli Jr., who I talked to just the other night, and Bob Tezak, who had the Uno sponsorship. And I had seen the previous, let me think a minute. No, this the previous year, not at Indianapolis, is when we put that together. Not the year that he raced Indianapolis, and not the year that Johnny Rutherford won. And anyway, I saw him the previous year. I saw him cutting up, and I said, we need this guy in NASCAR. So I found Bob Tezak. Joey Mattioli, Pocono Raceway, he wanted to do. He's the one that put the deal together, Junior, and we just put it together. And Tezak brought the money, and Pocono Raceway brought some money, and the way we went. They had Caesar's something up there, Caesar's Hotel or something that they put on the car, which paid some of the money. All money came from TZAC and from Pocono Raceway and from Caesar's Hotel. And away we went. We ran that one race, finished 12th. And he and I got along well. We both like to somewhat do the same things. Chase all the girls that were out there. And we pretty much catch them all, too. Not like we were just chasing them. And then he raced for me at 3 other races that year, all of which he finished 12th, except for one. I forget which one that was, and but he was happy with that. And then his dad, Al Richmond, and his mother, I can't remember her name.
Evelyn.
Evelyn, yeah, Al and Evelyn. We all got together, talked about doing this thing, and we put Hoss Ellington in it with Buddy Baker, and had number 1 and number 99, and both of them Uno sponsored. And we put together for the year. We flew down to Hoss Ellington's place and got that squared away. Buddy Baker wasn't with us, but he was there when we got there. And Buddy's my buddy because he's been down to my island, down to my hotel in the Bahamas, and we made a thing for ESPN down there. We made a video for them at the island. So we were good friends, and he and I worked together on it. And there it was. This was me and Hoss Ellington were partners, so to speak.
Yeah. Who was the Tim Richmond that you knew, personality-wise?
He was always crazy. When I say that, he was as a race car driver. You'll see pictures today around where I'm pointing to this over here, and he's talking to me, but he was serious. I mean, when he raced cars, he wanted to win. He didn't want to be anything but winning, and he knew he couldn't do it to begin with, or that it would take some time to get used to all this and get going. And I was the perfect guy for him at that time. And we had good cars, not great cars, but we had sponsorship all year from Uno. We got to buy new tires all the time, and we never had that option. But so we did pretty well with it, and then the time that I drove it on that one time at Dover, it just was the race was crazy. It just was crazy, and I happened to be there. He was a great wheelman, and as a person, he was always just with me. He was always just a great guy, And we go into the bar, and the girls. We couldn't see for all the girls that were around us when we went there,
Yeah.
And he liked that. He liked the girls. I don't know where. I do know that there was a time we made a movie, probably Stroker Ace, that he was in that, and I was supplying cars for that. That we went out one night with Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band in a limo. And those guys were shooting up, and he took one, and that's the first time I saw that he actually did that. And I think that's where he contacted his aides. This was before that, but still, he was good for anything. He we'll do it. Let's go. I don't want to miss anything.
Wow.
He'd be right there. And we rode around Atlanta and we partied. Went to some place that you had to wear a jacket to get in, some bar, and I went in and told them that we don't have a jacket, but I got these people in the car with us, and I think we met. Seems like it was Reynolds that we met for this party, and we were with Silver Bullet Band, and he was on his own thing, but they had to have jackets, and they didn't have any jackets either, so I talked them in to get us jackets from the back. They had some. They brought the jackets out, and they had all kind of different sizes, and we put them on in the worst one. Like Alfie Wise was there, one of the actors, and he's a shrimp. He's a Smurf. Okay.
Yeah.
We put the largest jacket on him. Bubba Smith was there, and he's the biggest guy. They put Alfie Wise's jacket on him. So just come down to here like this. But anyway, we were just cutting up with him and having a party there. But Tim was right in the middle of it all the time, and I was very surprised, like everyone else, when that happened to him, and was in contact with him. Saw him in Florida. He was on a boat in Florida, and it is what it is. And we all didn't know anything until he announced it himself. We just know that he was sick. Great guy. He never did anything to me, or when we had a year contract in that first year in 1981, but he got offered something with the car was number 37, and it belonged to somebody in South Carolina.
Bob Rogers.
Bob Rogers, yeah. And they offered him up something, and he was pissed because I did better in the car than him. He had finished 6th at Talladega, but I went out and finished 4th in the car, and he said I did that to him just to make him look bad, and I didn't. That's the race where Jody Ridley won the race, and the track was all tore up, and with the all-day unit in the car, and driving, I rode the rim. And I could go in a rim. Cale Yarborough was down there fighting and trying to miss the ruts and everything like that. And I go out ahead of him. I was just way up at the top. I had the right gear and I had the right everything for running that, and it just kept going. And I still finished. I don't know how many laps down it was. It was several laps down.
Yeah.
But everybody was falling out, and it was good. But that's what upset him more than anything. He thought I was doing that to him. So I don't know what you're looking for an answer there. He was focused on going faster all the time. He just wanted to go faster and faster. And he recognized that the equipment wasn't capable and the crew wasn't capable. The few dollars that Uno gave us was nothing in the scheme of things. It was just enough to get the deal put together, and I thought it might go somewhere in some time. Haas Ellington in on it. I might get some help from him motor-wise or something, and for me, I just wanted to make it happen, which I did for the time, and then he went his way and I went mine, But we were friends all throughout. When he was in worst condition, we met somewhere in Charlotte for a dinner in the snow, and it was snowing so bad that I left my car running when I went in, and I met Tim in there, and we did what we did, and when I came out, the only car in the parking lot you could see was mine. Everybody else was covered with snow.
Yeah, wow.
That was the last time I saw him.
We talked to David Ifft a few weeks ago.
I just watched him on your show.
Yeah.
I just pulled it up to see what I could see.
Yeah.
It didn't look like the David Ifft I know, but it was him.
Yeah.
I could see it down in there.
Yeah.
But that's cool. I just watched a little bit of that.
Well, he told us about his infamous excursion into Juarez, Mexico.
Yes.
That landed him in jail.
Yep.
And
whole crew in jail.
when he and everybody else finally made it to Ontario, you were pretty much waiting on him.
I was pretty much what?
Pretty much waiting on him.
Yeah.
You had evidently painted Juarez Racing Team on your car.
Yep.
And in the rundown in the next week's issue of Grand National Scene, it was actually listed as Juarez Racing Team.
What you didn't know, or what he didn't say maybe, is that I was instrumental in getting them out of the jail and on their way.
How so?
Just do what we got to do, I took...
Oh, don't dangle a carrot like that.
Well, I don't think he knows what we did to get him loose over there, but my sponsor all the time I was in racing, one of my sponsors was Ray-Ban. And I had 30 pairs of Ray-Ban in the truck. And I took these things in there, these sunglasses in there, because I'd done this once before in Mexico. And I just passed one to each guy. Where do you bail them out at, And I said, we need to get these guys out of here. We got to go race. I don't know how they actually got out of there, but I convinced all of them that they should have Ray-Ban sunglasses and that we all needed this to happen. I don't know how they got out, but I know they did. And David, we became friends after that, and he was a character,
How much fun was it?
What he had to say, but
how much fun was it to aggravate him about that?
Well, we had a lot of fun with that. I mean, we paint that on the car, and people would ask, especially in the garage, the guys that knew that we went to Juarez, or they know we stopped in Juarez. They were there too, probably somewhere, and how that happened and what it was all about. Now, the reason it was on there wasn't just, it wasn't just because that's what I'm saying, that I didn't just rib them about that. I mean, I was there. I knew what happened. I tried to assist them in getting out of there, and then I took off and went to Ontario. And that's why I put their name on the car, is because
So you actually went down to Mexico to help get them out?
I was already there.
Okay.
I'd already seen them. The guys there, they were wearing some boots and doing whatever they're doing or something. And then we didn't have cell phones, But when I saw one of the crew or something, they said that David's in trouble over here, and I said, let's go find out what it is. And they couldn't hardly speak English, and I know very little Spanish, so we didn't get very far. But I had this truck right there, and I gave him the sunglasses and said, how can we make this work here, And
Wow.
that's all I did. And I'm not sure what they knew about that at that time, because I really didn't get them out. But I tried to assist in getting them out, and the crew guy was Dewey, maybe his name, Dewey Levengood, something like that.
Yeah.
So maybe I think that's I can't remember so many different crew guys and so many different race car drivers I had, and so many different races with so many different things. All was different, and it was basically my whole deal was to survive.